At the famous Mount Carmel Cemetery in Chicago stands the statue of the Italian Bride, a statue of a woman wearing a wedding dress and carrying a bouquet of flowers. There's a weird story behind this monument. What is this bride's story? Let's understand that in the following lines. Her name was Giulia Buccola Beta, born in Italy on 6 June 1891. After her father's death, she emigrated to the United States with her mother, Filomena Buccola, and settled in Chicago. The young Giulia married a man named Matthew Pita shortly after her marriage and became pregnant. But her pregnancy did not go smoothly as some complications and problems emerged, and on 17th of March, 1921, Giulia died. At the time of the birth of her child, Filippo, who also died at the time of his birth. According to Italian tradition, women who die during childbirth are considered martyrs and must be buried in white clothes. So Giulia was buried in a coffin, wearing a white wedding dress and carrying her baby. After Giulia's death, her mother entered a spiral of grief and pain and began to have dreams and nightmares. From this point of view, it seems natural for a mother to mourn the loss of her daughter. No wonder she had nightmares, but what was certainly not normal was that Giulia told her in her dreams that she was still alive and that she had to help. These nightmares lasted for 6 years and began to disturb Filomena as she woke up and slept, finally deciding to open her daughter's grave, and persevered to get the judge's permission, which he obtained after some great effort. In fact, when Giulia's coffin was extracted and opened 6 years later, everyone was amazed to find that Giulia's body had never rotted or decomposed and was wet, like she's still alive. But the little son who was on her arm was really rotten. Filomena took a photo of her daughter in the coffin, where she appeared to be asleep, and her coffin appeared to run over time. The mother also raised funds and donations to create a life-size statue and memorial. She also placed the photo she took of Giulia's body in front of the memorial and wrote a sentence in Italian. This photo was taken in 1966, years after her death. The family of Giulia believes that the disintegration of her body was a sign and a miracle of God. But why didn't Giulia's body rot? What is her secret? Of course, most religious Catholics believe that Giulia was a saint, and therefore her body did not degrade, while another view questioned the whole incident and suggested that the photo was taken immediately after her death, although the images clearly show that the coffin was long old and buried. The child's decomposed body next to Giulia lends credence to the novel. Another explanation is likely to be degradable to so-called corpse wax, a substance that forms when deceased body fat decomposes in humid conditions, consisting of fatty acids and calcium, meaning that the body passes through natural biological processes that maintain its shape. Others blame the failure of corpse degradation on the modern mummification process widely used in Western countries, especially the United States, which is based on injecting the body and treating it with chemicals, which can sometimes cause the late body to fully degrade, especially if the body is placed in a sealed, air-free coffin. Finally, there are those who question Giulia's mother's credibility, accusing her of blessing the themes of her dreams and nightmares to gain sympathy for raising funds to build a memorial for her daughter. Giulia's story did not end there. Another story emerged that her ghost still haunted the cemetery, with many witnesses confirming that they saw a ghostly woman in a white gown walking around the cemetery. His family mistakenly took place in a cemetery near Giulia's tomb. When they returned to look for him, they saw him holding the hand of a dark-haired woman. As they ran towards his parents, the woman disappeared into the air. It is worth noting that Julia's body preservation status is not unique. Many bodies have been found in history, some of them hundreds or even thousands of years old, but they remain intact and have not been decomposed, if they're honest. And here's another story about Inca's mummies. 500 years ago, 3 children climbed Mount Lolilaco in Argentina from the Andean mountain range and never returned. In 1999, these 3 mummies were discovered, presented to mountain gods at sacrificial ceremonies, placed in their own cemeteries, and frozen to death. The best preserved bodies belong to a teenage girl who was 13 years old when she died, and researchers call her an Inca virgin. When she was discovered, she wore a cloak, her hair carefully braided, and a crown. She wears a white feathered helmet, symbolizing her new status as a messenger from the sky. The Inca believed in worshiping mountain gods, making sacrifices and healthy children to mountain gods in order to protect them. Biochemical examination of the girl's hair showed that her diet had changed in the year before her death, taking more animal protein and corn, and that her coca and alcohol intake had begun at the same time as her diet had changed increasingly. Coca use peaked 6 months before her death, while drinking has increased in recent weeks. This evidence gives us a clear picture of this girl's events, which culminated in the time of its victim. The change in its diet, drinking, and coca use coincided with its choice as a sacrifice to the gods. In Inca culture, girls, chosen women, are chosen to live away from their families around the age of 4. The adolescent period may have been under the custody of the priests, during which, in addition to chewing coca leaves, from which cocaine is extracted, they were trained to drink fermented corn, which is a sacred ritual substance in some cultures. The rays showed coca leaves between the girl's teeth, suggesting that she was chewing on them when she died. The girl was certainly drugged dramatically when she was lowered into the grave and left to die, as there were no external signs of fear, such as vomiting or defecation, and the position she was when the researchers found her to have died peacefully. His legs were stiff, indicating that they did not resist when they were placed in the grave. Several factors contributed to preserving the girl's body and led to her becoming the best preserved mummy in the world. Persistent low temperatures freeze the body. Low humidity prevents the body from shrinking, and rapid burial in frozen soil creates a moisture barrier, that is, it forms an additional barrier against degradation. This unique combination of factors makes the peaks of the Andes an excellent place to preserve organic materials. The team faced 3 days of snow and winds of up to 70 mph to reach the top of the 1,000-foot Mount Lorelaraku, the world's longest archaeological site, and eventually discovered the burial site under 5 feet of rock. The mummy is displayed in Argentina in a low-oxygen refrigerated environment and in conditions similar to where it was found. And here's another story of one of the thousands-year-old bodies, is that of Xin-Chi, whose facial features have been redrawn by scientists. It belongs to one of China's ruling families. She lived under the Western Han family and was a strong wife of a nobleman, and died in 163 BC. In 1971, her body was discovered by accident. During excavations at the site, the body was wrapped in 20 silk layers and placed in 4 coffins. The body was in good condition, and her skin was smooth and damp. Her muscles were in good and flexible condition, All her organs and blood vessels were intact except for a small amount of blood in her veins, and her hair and eyelashes were still present. The body is found in the Hunan Museum in China, and many valuable items found with it